in the 2020, and things are developing, as I will explain to you later in this presentation, giving you some examples. So what do we see at EUA at the moment is when we take stock of the 2020, we see that actually to a large extent the COVID-19 digitalization boost or jump has accentuated the existing trends and issues. We are realizing in Europe that the issues we were discussing before the crisis have just become more pertinent and more urgent at the moment. And I'm going to talk to you briefly about three types of issues that we've been discussing in Europe, which are digitalization, lifelong learning and flexibilization of higher education, and then also the social dimension. And these are slightly linked to each other. And then I'll wrap up with the attention to quality and the discussions we are having at the moment in Europe about the quality of higher education in these exceptional circumstances. The first study that I'm going to base my presentation on is what we call Higher Education. It's a digitalization of higher education. We carried out a survey which was actually pre-planned, or it was in the planning for May 2020. And what happened is that we adjusted the questions in light of the COVID-19, so we do have some data of the situation in May. Which of course now it has moved a little bit. But if we look at the situation in general in light of the responses we got from over 300 universities around Europe, what did it look like? We first asked, what did it look like before the crisis? How much online learning were you providing? And we saw that there were major regional and institutional differences. Some institutions and in some countries, they have had a lot of experience, so it was easier to jump into offering widespread online learning. But then again, in other countries, we have staff that had never taught online. And in many universities, you had some proportion of your staff that had never taught online. So in the responses, 75% of the institutions told us that they had offered blended learning already before the crisis. Half of them said that they had short online courses available before the crisis. 35% said they had fully online degrees that they offered, and 25% said they had experimented with virtual mobility. I decided not to today to talk too much about the internationalization and the mobility, student or staff mobility that we've invested a lot in Europe, but for instance, through our Erasmus Plus program. But it needs to be said that there was discussion about the virtual mobility already before the crisis, but now that really in Europe the borders have closed, people are not traveling, it has become a completely different level of discussion and urgency of discussion. So then we asked what was the COVID-19 impact? What kind of changes did they introduce, the institutions, in spring? Well, in March, in the course of, let's say, 10 days, 90% of the education was moved online. And what we see in our discussions with the institutions now in summer and now in the beginning of autumn is that most of the universities were planning to offer education in a hybrid or blended format this autumn. In other words, to offer some education online and some at the campus. This varies a lot. There have been countries such as let's say the Nordic countries and Ireland who from the beginning said most of it will be online. We are relying on online provision. And only some courses such that they really need to be on the campus will be on campus. Whereas I'm living in Belgium, here 80% of the courses were face-to-face or in campus until Friday. Friday evening, the universities, together with all the other actors in Belgium, learned that we are moving back online. And for instance, today, as of today, there is a teleworking obligation in Brussels, and the universities are back to online provision. So they've had to, over the weekend, adjust again how they are offering their courses. So a lot of different solutions, and important thing has been the flexibility and ability to respond to the changing situation. So changes due to the COVID-19 were that there were more virtual staff meetings in most universities. They were exploring new ways of teaching. Suddenly, these teachers that had not done it online had to learn that, and exploring new ways of communicating with the staff and students. This has been felt to be very important. Library, online library services have been improved, and over 60% are still saying that they have plans on updating their policies on remote working. So a lot of changes have taken place. In terms of what has made it easier and what has made it more difficult, here are some of the enablers and barriers that the institutions identified. So proactive participation of staff and students was crucial for the success in the move in spring, as so was the professional development and training and so on. It has to be said that most of the universities have reported that the staff and students were in spring very willing to experiment, very willing to do the job. And interestingly enough, even now when we are asking the students what doesn't work in this online provision, what is interesting is that actually quite often they do acknowledge, the students acknowledge also that the teachers are doing their best and that the formal learning is happening. But what you're not getting is the informal learning. What you usually get out in the end and in the end of the lecture, when you, for instance, have an opportunity to talk to your teacher, that is missing in this online environment. Then moving on from the digitalization, which is to the lifelong learning, which is another one that is important and we're talking a lot about at the moment. Here you see some statistics on how our respondents see the role of digitalization in offering lifelong learning. There is a link there. They are interlinked, these two policy lines. And providing online learning is an important way of reaching out to new audiences. And in Europe, we are talking a lot more about online learning, and in particular about the micro-credentials today. Because as all over the world, we are expecting there to be economic consequences of the crisis. The unemployment rates are, someone would say, perhaps skyrocketing, or at least they are increasing in Europe. And we expect that part of the workforce will need some retraining. And micro-credentials are now seen as one way of retraining, upskilling, and reskilling our workforce. What we mean by micro-credentials are the small volumes of learning certified by a credential. So they may be some weeks, some 100 hours of work, and so on. But they are not full degrees. And the universities and higher education institutions in general play quite a big role in Europe in providing these kind of learning opportunities. And they are part of the agenda for flexibilization of higher education. For instance, in Europe, we are now at the moment preparing for the Bologna process ministerial meeting, which will take place next month. And it is expected that the ministers for higher education across the European higher education area will be highlighting the kind of flexibilization and small volumes of small learning periods as a way forward in the next decade for the European higher education. And therefore, there are some projects, including the Micropolo project, which I have put on the slide, where we will be looking into the European approach to micro-credentials, trying to bring clarity, transparency, and portability for these kind of small learning experiences. The challenge is that we're at the moment talking about them. We're talking micro-credentials are important. People need to be able to come and go to the university and get the learning that they need. But at the same time, we don't have really clarity and understanding of what they are and what they could be. And there are a lot of different understandings. So the idea is that in the next years to try to find a common understanding of what is a micro-credential. Then the third thing that I picked up to bring up as a COVID-19 impact for us and impact on the of the online provision is the social dimension. In Europe, we've talked about this a lot over the decades, and the ideal is that education should be accessible for all those who have capacity to succeed in their studies, so that your social economic background, for instance, should not impact whether you can participate in higher education. And we've had in the Bologna process a working group working on this, and they have developed principles and guidelines for social dimension. But many of the issues they already bring up there have become really critical at the moment. COVID-19 response, we have really noticed that the social situation of students and staff impacts how they are able to cope in this situation and how they are going to be able, how they can continue their education. The access to digital learning environments varies a lot. For some, this is not a problem to be at home and studying, whereas others don't have stable Wi-Fi, so that will impact your ability to study. Learning difficulties and the student autonomy and the support, these get a completely different emphasis in these circumstances. Those students who are very autonomous, who can study on their own, they can still do that, and there is no problem. But then those who need more support need it even more in these situations. So we do expect in the next few years to be working on these issues and how to provide the support. What about the quality? There's a lot of discussion in Europe about the quality. Are students learning the same thing that they learned when they were in the, let's say, in the usual mode? Are the degrees awarded during this period of the same quality? Can we trust that they are of the same quality? And do we have quality assurance measures for this online provision? In general, I would say yes, they are learning. The degrees awarded are of the same quality. We have put a lot of emphasis on the examinations. This summer, the universities were really working on examinations and ensuring the quality. And the good practice in quality assurance remains the same. We have, for instance, published a statement that the European standards and guidelines for quality assurance that we have, they apply to online learning as well. The institutions and the quality assurance agencies should be working according to the same principles, even if we are working online. But perhaps the good news about all this is that we are really paying attention to the quality. And we've put the focus on learning outcomes, not on the mode of delivery. Especially in the beginning, I would say in spring, there was a lot of worry about the mode of delivery. But we've now understood that as long as the students learn, the mode of delivery should not matter so much. But we need to be able to assess the student learning in a reliable manner. And that is perhaps the challenge if you cannot meet the students or have the examinations in a presential manner. For instance, the recognition, those who recognize the qualifications, in the first months of the crisis, we're very much talking about online delivery. I've taken part in their meetings, and now it is really about let's assess the learning outcomes and see what the students have learned. So to conclude, in Europe, we can see increased attention to the assessment of student learning. Methodologies are being tested, different kinds of solutions are being found and shared. The general sentiment in Europe is that we do need to take advantage of this digital leap. We would perhaps never have made the leap if there wasn't a crisis. The important thing would be not to go back to the usual way of working right away when we can. But as I already told you that, for instance, in Belgium, the universities, following the recommendations of the authorities, in the beginning of autumn did decide that to go mostly to the campus. Well, as said earlier in my presentation, now as of today, it's mostly online provision. So it's going back and forth a little bit. But in general, there is a sentiment that in most countries that the future will be hybrid. We will probably continue to provide more provision online than we did before the crisis, once we've kind of analyzed what works and what doesn't work. For instance, the lectures are expected to be online largely, at least for the near future. And then what we have learned is the importance of the universities as social spaces and going beyond the formal learning. There's some concern whether this will continue, that universities gather people to have intellectual conversations and to learn from each other. But while there is a little bit of a concern, there is also belief that we will be back doing it and we will want to do it. It is clear from the student feedback that they would want to go back to the opportunity to learn from each other, to interact with each other, to see each other, also outside the classroom, if we use that expression. And the same with the interaction with the students and the teachers in a campus mode is completely different. So I think we've learned the appreciation, and also the appreciation that university studies are not only about studying, it's also about networking, it's about getting to know people that you might know for the rest of your life. So I think there is a different understanding and acknowledgement of what does it mean to go to the university and what the experience is all about. It's not only about just about the learning outcomes, even if I highlighted that a bit more. So that's where I finish and hand over to you, Michael.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tia. Very interesting developments. I think it's safe to say that COVID has brought universities in Europe into an experimental mode that they weren't in before. So if anything is true, that this flexibility and the necessity to adapt to the new situation is driving developments, something that probably years of policy making wouldn't have achieved. So it's quite interesting. Sometimes people say that innovation only happens when it has to happen. And I think this is something that we witness now live, and probably for the discussion later be of interest to see how do organizations like EUA document and support universities in Europe in documenting these developments and planning for the future. I know that there has been a question on this type of how do universities prepare the planning for the future past COVID-19. I will give you some time to reflect on that, Tia, for later on in the discussion. The questions in the question box are popping up, so please continue to do so. We will address them in the Q&A session at the end of our three speakers. One other thing that also came to mind when I listened to you, the informal learning is missing, you said, Tia, and this is something we notice now with the online mode of deliverance. But on the other hand, we haven't been very conscious about this added value when we had it. So I think one of the developments that we see with COVID as well is that we will become much more conscious about where do we add value by having students on campus. And I think that's an exciting development to witness, to come up with. So I would like to continue the conversation now and to go to the next example, this time a case study from the Technological University of Aachen in Germany. And we are very lucky that Professor Aloys Krieg, who is the Vice-Rector of that institution for already 12 years, is here with us today. He is responsible for the quality and organization of studies and teaching, and in particular quality assurance. So I'm sure that he will be saying a few words about the quality discussion as well. This institution is very engaged also in Southeast Asia, so I'm sure that the connection to your situation and your questions will be given. And maybe one last word on his background. He is a mathematician and works as a chair of mathematics at the university. He was the dean of the faculty of mathematics, computer science, and natural sciences quite a while ago. And so I'm sure that Aloys, you can enlighten us with examples from your institutions, how you've coped with the current situation, and maybe what type of steps you would see for the future. So thank you for being with us here this morning or this afternoon in Southeast Asia, and over to you.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you for the opportunity to describe what RWTH Aachen did in order to cope with the COVID situation. Okay, let me here already told several things. So what about the corona conditions in Aachen? In March 2020, there was a lockdown as nearly all over the world. And it was better during the summer, but recently, 2 weeks ago, we had another lockdown of the university. Lockdown means that it is not allowed to give lectures on campus face-to-face. This will carry out all over the winter semester as well, so we will not change back to teaching in presence. It will be taught digitally. This is true for all kinds of lectures and seminars. They are taught via Zoom. And we only have exceptions for lab work and excursions, but everybody has to get a permit of the vice president. So we allowed oral exams via Zoom or in presence. Nearly all the written exams are given on campus, but with less students in a lecture hall so that we can meet the challenges of the corona crisis. But all the modules will be taught. So you're interested in some results. The results of the summer semester are that we have examples of exams with a higher and a lower participation rate and a higher and a lower success rate. Overall, the results of the exams are comparable to those of 2019. And as Tia already mentioned, the exams are of the same level of difficulty as before. Okay, what is the challenge? As Tia already mentioned, the last semester was the easy one, since all the students, nearly all of the students, had already their experience with the university life. The difficult situation starts now. Today we start with the lectures of our winter semester. There we have about 6,000 students who are freshmen, and they do not really know what to do at a university. We have to teach them. And the social integration, they have to meet friends. And this is very difficult in such a situation. And this is the biggest challenge in the winter semester. So we started an onboarding process in each faculty that students of a higher semester meet students in very small groups, up to 5, and that they can tell them what to do in order to be successful at a university. A challenge for only a few students is to get access to Wi-Fi and to have the laptop equipment in order to follow the lectures via Zoom. But this is only a problem for, say, 1% of the students or even less. So we found solutions for them that they could borrow a laptop from the university or things like that. This was not really a problem. Okay, what did we do? So let me describe the situation. So we were fairly lucky since in 2014 we started our digitalization strategy for teaching in the first phase and the second phase in 2018. This also gives the answer, how do we see the future of remote learning? By 2023, we want to have, say, 60% of all our courses have got supplementary digital tools in order to meet the students' needs. And our main aim is to increase the success rate of our students. The digital formats will be used for self-learning at home and will also be able to make the classroom teaching easier for the students since they have got more material. So in my opinion, the future will be that we have got several types of students. We have got types of students who prefer to learn digitally, and we have other types of students who prefer to learn in a classroom. And we will have offers for both kinds of students. And of course, we have to support our teaching staff by offering further trainings. So, what did we do for our international students? First of all, we have a digital welcome week, we have virtual research internships, and the B-Buddy program, which usually takes place face-to-face. This is also given in a virtual way in order to have intercultural trainings. So the most promising type we did is we established a Center for Teaching and Learning Services, which supports the whole university. And this center did the main load of work during the summer semester. Now, what is their task? First of all, the qualification of the teaching staff, then the support, for instance, in producing videos, serious games, and electronic examinations. And the research part is data-based improvement of learning. Now, let's start with the material in the Corona semester. First of all, we have got two green screen studios. And this is one example where the teaching staff could go and record the lectures. We have also could also record lectures in 5 lecture halls. This is important in particular for mathematicians, since they could also be recorded at a blackboard when they do mathematics with a chalk. Meanwhile, they gave up to do so, but this was necessary for them that they accept all this kind of recording. We also enable teaching staff to produce videos on their own. For instance, if you only want to produce slidecast, then it is easy to do it at home, but you also get some kind of training to help the staff to produce these videos. And the big lectures, so we have classes with up to 1,000 students. They are usually taught by Zoom, and the participation of the students is better than it is when we do the lectures face-to-face, since the students are anonymous, and in the chat they can ask questions, and the questions are answered. So if they do not have to tell their name or to show the face in the lecture hall, then they often dare to ask questions which they wouldn't do so when it is in the lecture hall. And of course, this unit also provided the teaching staff with the Zoom and Microsoft Teams licenses. And this will also be done in the winter semester and in this winter semester for all students. So we enable them to organize their own conferences within a small group of students, and they do not need any support by our university. Now, electronic exams. That is also one topic we did for several years. So this is a lecture hall with 300 places where students can take an electronic exam. And we have about 120 exams per semester, which are done by Dynexite. Dynexite is a software we developed in order to offer the electronic exams in Aachen, and we will continue to increase the number of exams taken electronically. Now, we want to have a larger variety. For instance, distance exams. This is one problem because several students from abroad cannot come to Aachen, but they want to pass the exams. And one problem is that we have proctored exams. They are proctored by Zoom usually. The problem is not the IT. The problem is the data protection in Germany. So this is not really allowed, a real proctoring. I think it will take 3 more years before things we do meet the legal restrictions we have. But at the moment, we just try to offer these exams that they do not lose time during the Corona crisis. And of course, we encourage the faculty for alternative exam scenarios. That means we have learning portfolios, simulation games, products generated by students, for instance, videos. This is really good for the teacher education, for instance, or project works. But therefore, we have to change our rules, and it will take a little bit more time before we can offer all these things we are planning to do. Now, serious games. Serious games is also one particular point. For instance, we have 8,000 students who earned grades in 2020 using serious games. In different kinds of areas, for instance, in computer science, it's very natural to have a serious game. But we also have a serious game in theology. For instance, you have to learn the Hebrew language in theology, and there's a serious game that students can learn this language by this serious game. There are lots of possibilities and how to encourage students to cover the material. So, what else are things done in Germany? For instance, take-home exams. They are under evaluation, but the biggest problem is this will not be accepted at our university since there are too many possibilities to cheat. So this is true at least for the students in natural sciences and engineering. In the philosophical society, it was common over years that students write homework. Okay. So the alternative assessment strategies is that we propose serious games as part of students' grades, that we send out experimental kits and use them via video conferences. For instance, that in the future it will be possible to write an exam on the computer, and that you also write down, say, formulas in mathematics by hand, and then you send in this material at the end of the exam to the university. And we develop new portfolios that, for instance, if you teach statistics, it's not necessary that you only have 5 numbers where you compute the average, but you have also data sets, and you use the PC in order to evaluate these real data sets. Okay, interdisciplinary projects are also very interesting for future development. And one strategic project is data literacy. That means we want to teach all our students a basic knowledge of data science that they can apply and they know what the data do and how to handle them. And this should be a common competence of all our students. And moreover, we have special projects adapted to the specific needs of the particular study courses, which are different, for instance, in philosophy and in machine learning and electrical engineering. Okay, this will be rolled out right now, and we will start in 1 year with our basic courses in data literacy. One other strategic project is analytics. We have lots of data from our students, and we want to measure and analyze them, and want to increase the success rate of the students. And we want also help the teachers to see which kind of material has been understood by the students and where they have to provide additional material. So this will help the students, the teaching staff, and also the administration, since our biggest problem all over Germany is to increase the success rate of our students. And the biggest challenge in this problem is not the IT, it is the data protection and the data security. That means we have to involve the students that they are the master of their data, and they only allow other people to have a look into particular data. Another strategic project is internationalization. We have the European Universities of Technology Alliance, and we want to increase the international exchange. And the biggest problem is the recognition for the credit points when you take a course at another university. We will do this during the next years, that we have an automatic workflow where we transfer the module descriptions, for instance, from different universities, and that all the students can be sure that the credit points are recognized at our university. There's a project by the German Academic Exchange Service, the Digital Campus. That means how to attract good students from abroad to the German university system, that we give them opportunities to deliver or to take part in courses, in online courses, when they are still in their home country. And it should also be possible to take exams. And exams not necessarily forces them to come to Germany, but the possibility of online exams, of proctored online exams, will help us to facilitate the internationalization strategy. And of course, we have new material. For instance, in our mining course, we have a virtual reality approach that you are walking in a mine, which is, of course, difficult if you want to do it in real life. And we have avatar-based teaching. This is also a project where you handle teaching with avatars, which gives you the impression that you are in the same room, despite of the fact that you are at different places all over the world. Now, what is our vision in internationalization? We want to have accreditation agreements between our partner universities in a transparent way to handle the accreditation database. And we want to open our digital modules also to students from our partner universities, if they vice versa open their digital modules to our students. And this opening should also include the examinations. That's the reason why we are working on electronic examinations, that we can also give the students such an exam when they are not in Aachen. So this is a plan for the future. And, this is the plan for the future, and thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Aloys, also for enlightening us with some of the future vision for your institution and for Southeast Asia. RWTH Aachen is a university that is very engaged in, or has been very engaged in the whole digitalization discussion even before COVID-19 kicked in. So they were probably very well placed to handle the situation, or maybe a little bit better than other institutions. There have been a number of questions addressed to from what you said on the three topics, we might go into the data literacy, learning analytics, and internationalization a little more in detail during the Q&A. What I found very interesting is the whole question about how to avoid cheating in academia and what type of solutions can be developed. So maybe we can touch upon that later on as well. But now, for the time being, I would now like to go to our third speaker, a speaker from Indonesia with the case study from Gadjah Mada University, Dr. Sri Suning Kusumawardani, or Dr. Sri Suning is the Deputy Director of the Center for Academic Innovation and Studies at Gadjah Mada University, and also a lecturer at the Electrical and Information Engineering Department. She has extensive experience in information technology, e-learning, and student-centered learning, has been working with the ministry in Indonesia on with the facilitation of the higher education curriculum. She also was a coordinator of the Gadjah Mada University SPADA platform, the learning management system. So I think she is very, very well placed to present to you this morning the case of the University of Gadjah Mada in Indonesia. And welcome and good afternoon to you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me. Good morning and very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It is a great moment to have an international seminar series to share a lesson learned of COVID-19 and the journey of online learning. It is a awesome event. Thank you to the Ministry of Education and Culture, DAAD, speaker, and all the audience make it happen. My name is Sri Suning Kusumawardani. As Universitas Gadjah Mada representative, I would like to present UGM's innovative learning ecosystem, the journey of digital transformation, perspective from human dimension. Universitas Gadjah Mada is the oldest university in Indonesia and was established in 1949. The UGM profile below will provide you a glance of our university. UGM consists of 18 faculties, 2 schools, 265 study programs, 125 departments, 111 joint or double degree programs, and 23 research centers. We have 4,798 total faculty staff, 39,477 total students, about 14,500 new students per year, and about 15,650 freshmen per year. This profile provides an overview of the complex challenge faced by UGM in carrying out the digital transformation. In this opportunity, I will focus on the material of digital transformation in teaching and learning activities. There are at least 2 important things we need to consider if we are going to carry out the digital transformation in teaching and learning activity. Digital transformation is cultural change, which is certainly related to the learning paradigm and how we view the process that will digitalize. First, regarding teaching and learning, a shifting learning paradigm is prominently needed. We do not only digitalize the learning material or the exam, but also how we digitalize the learning experience. In the terms of students, lecture, administrative staff, and the available supporting system. Second, online learning is not only related to technology, but more than that it is about creating a learning process that is comfortable and enjoyable, humanizing humans and humanizing the technology. A paradigm that needs to be part of a culture of learning and to make something friendlier to humans, humanizing makes things more civilized, refined, and understandable. In terms of learning system and process in higher education in Indonesia, the first thing we need to understand is that higher education goals focus on producing graduates as intellectual with good characters, as formulated in Law Number 12 of 2012. To support that goal, we realize that we need to apply 21st century learning, which has its outcome related to high-order thinking skill, communication, collaboration, compassion, critical thinking, creative thinking, computation, logic, etc. Innovative learning ecosystem need to build so that 21st century learning becomes part of the culture. Curriculum, which is the most important part of a study program, has to construct to aim the learning outcome that refers to several standards such as Higher Education National Standard and Indonesia Qualification Framework. Moreover, related to the course in the curriculum, we need to include new literacies related to big data, technology, and human. Integration of three pillars of higher education, which are education, research, and community service, become an important part of curriculum implementation that facilitate programs called independent learning, independent campus, which will give challenging learning opportunities for the student. Regarding perspective from human dimension, the father of Indonesian education, Ki Hadjar Dewantoro, has a philosophy of education that is still relevant to the current situation of learning, that learning can be done by anyone and anywhere, also to remind the role of educator. Ing ngarsa sung tulodo ing madya mangun karso tutwuri handayani, which guide for teacher to teach with knowledge sharpening, compassion, care. Ing ngarsa sung tulodo, at the front, become a role model. Ing madya mangun karso, at the middle, keeping the spirit for motivation. Tutwuri handayani, at the end, encouraging. This philosophy of Ki Hadjar Dewantoro provides a strong foundation for Indonesian pedagogy skill. Of course, one of the important skills for the teacher is pedagogical skills. However, at the end of the day, teacher also need to inspire the students to light a fire. To strengthen the pedagogy skill, we need learning innovation. We need to encourage students to use internal and external learning resources, which is rapidly increasing, especially 21st century learning, direct higher education to strengthen 21st century competencies. To change in the job landscape in the coming years will change the way we educate our students. We need to cultivate a positive learning attitude and independent learning to create lifelong learners. Therefore, the factors of rapid change in knowledge and technology are the reasons why we need to strengthen innovation. Why e-learning? We need to realize that e-learning provides access and facilities to students to build their knowledge independently. as well as giving the lecture significant roles as designer, initiator, facilitator, and motivator of learning. So there is an e-learning question, which is the focus, E or learning? Basically, e-learning is a learning process by utilizing information and communication technology as the result of systematic integration of learning component with attention to quality, learning resource, and characterized by learning interaction across time and space. Currently, the main problem with online learning is to focus on technology, not seeing the human dimension aspect and how technology can show its humanist condition even in simple ways. Therefore, the learning designer needs to know that space. The idea of blended learning is not just combining face-to-face in the physical classroom with synchronous interaction through online learning. In fact, we can combine it with the advantage of technology with the advantage of human, of thinking as human being. We call this concept humanizing technology. Technology has the advantage of tracking, control, mobility, flexibility, systematic self-directed learning, reduced cost, and global reach. Humans have the advantage of personalization, motivation, engagement, relevance, contextual, discipline, and integrity. If we know how to combine it, learning will become seamless learning. We need various learning experience and innovation. In the following, we identify some pedagogy aspects on online learning that affect online learning based on perspective from human dimension. First, learning paradigm on online learning design. Online learning is not classical physical learning that is online. So we need to have a paradigm and a plan up for how we engage with students through it. Second, online learning etiquette and positive learning attitude, because the online learning culture still needs to be improved. We need to always remind our student and lecturer that the etiquette when online learning and cultivate learning is a necessity, not as a formality online. Third, digital module development and materials delivery strategy. How can the digital module become convenient to learn, and what is the strategy to convey it? Fourth, strengthening the interaction and engagement of learners. And next, online assessment and evaluation, which can measure achievement effectively and efficiently. In this section, we present how UGM journey in carrying digital transformation and teaching and learning activities. It started in 2004 when the learning management system was first developed at UGM called ELISA and other e-learning in faculty departments such as Papyrus, Quantum Gamma, and Gamel. At that time, e-learning was still limited to repository system, which is only a place, a lecture to provide materials and place for students to collect assignments. Then in 2013, Indonesia MOOCs were initiated, which was later named SPADA. At that time, UGM developed 6 courses to be accessed by other universities. During the development of MOOCs integrated system from UGM to SPADA, compatibility problems occur because the SPADA learning management system and learning management system ELISA had different platforms. So in 2018, UGM developed a model-based LMS called Aloys in order to implement MOOCs properly and more compatible with SPADA. The term Aloys is taken from the Japanese language, which means good and beautiful. Also stand for e-learning, open for knowledge sharing. In 2018, UGM also made policies related to blended learning and fully online learning and facilitated collaboration between study programs to develop special MOOCs for interdisciplinary courses, such as digital transformation and social entrepreneurship. UGM also facilitated a collaboration tool for synchronous learning, namely WebEx and Microsoft Teams. The goal of established policy is that all have a learning experience of blended learning. At the end of 2019, only about 40% had taken advance of blended learning. Until 2020, all learning activity is conducted fully online. The most influential driver of digital transformation is COVID-19 outbreak. All need a learning management system and collaboration tools. This momentum is utilized to strengthen the implementation of blended learning and MOOCs. And next, we will plan to become seamless learning and also carry out the integration of 3 pillars of higher education, research, and community service. What happened during the COVID-19 outbreak? Aloys, learning management system, is the backbone of learning process in UGM. Behind the scene, supporting teams are always on standby position for the first 4 months of the pandemic. There is a great lesson from this incident, especially when new student, freshmen, known as Mada, Gadjah Mada Muda, begin to conduct campus orientation period using Aloys, which was accessed simultaneously. On the first day before the access, we prepared a time for penetration testing of LMS Aloys. And surprisingly, in 1 hour, about 11,700 users recorded, and 1 day, 27,000 users recorded. In addition to LMS preparation, at the beginning of COVID-19, we prepared video-based guidance with a short duration that are accessible from pika.ugm.ac.id. We also provide how-to service using a knowledge-based basis. Evaluation using survey are also regularly conducted to determine online learning policies during a pandemic. The following are the example results of the online learning survey on April 2020. Related to previously mentioned UGM online learning system, UGM already has UGM Educational Framework 4.0. UGM educational paradigm is directed at outcome-based education by facilitating and strengthening 21st century learning. Strengthening the innovation ecosystem needs to be done by reinforcing the infrastructure, curriculum and learning resource, method and staff development. After that, we focus on digital culture, then carry out the integration, character, creativity and innovation, as well as the integration of 3 pillars of higher education is the main foundation to achieve vision, mission and UGM values. This slide presents the Aloys where we develop the innovative learning ecosystem module. This module is to provide learning experience for lecture with material from concept to practice. We regularly organize this training. Besides the innovative learning ecosystem module for the teacher, UGM also developed the character development program. The design for character development is shown by one of the following examples. This example is for an undergraduate program, semester 1 to 8. Character development programs are designed to develop character through freshman orientation, compulsory university course, interdisciplinary course, real work lecture, and also the independent learning, independent campus program, respectively. Besides the character development program, since 2018, UGM has always collaborated to develop interdisciplinary courses such as social entrepreneurship, data literacy, technology literacy, humanitarian literacy, health literacy, global competencies, critical thinking, communication skill, creativity, collaboration, community service, STEM, health, and SDGs. This is an example of an interdisciplinary course, Digital Transformation, which has enrolled by all undergraduate students and has been held fully online since 2018. There can be up to 1,000 students per semester. On this slide, we want to show that during the COVID-19 outbreak, the enthusiasm for learning from the community was high. This course is one of the free training programs for the community from high school student, university student, and professional. Here, after the registration was open for 1 week, 2,462 participants had been registered. This is an opportunity for all of us to educate the public and prepare for a real digital transformation. Currently, we are planting seeds, the embryo of charity of knowledge. We can expand the distribution of the charity through online learning. I'm Suning. As UGM representative, I would like to say thanks for the opportunity. Hopefully, the spirit that UGM always has, locally rooted, globally respected, will have a great impact on the process of digital transformation in Indonesia. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suning. That was really inspiring and interesting to see. And I think your institution was also a bit similar to the previous speaker, extremely well prepared for the situation that caught most of us unexpectedly. So I think this is really also a lesson maybe for the future, that preparing, having a strategy, being ready for this type of developments because you know they are coming, probably puts you in a good situation to deal with more difficult situations once they arrive. We have now reached the moment in the seminar where all speakers have contributed. We have a number of questions, comments in the chat. I would like to pick them up along the conversation now for the next hour or 50 minutes or so. Maybe starting off with a short look into the future. I mean, Aloys, you already mentioned it in your presentation, what your strategy is. Maybe Tia and Suning could elaborate a little bit more about how they see the next, maybe not months, but years evolve for the higher education sector in Europe or in Indonesia. Tia, would you like to start?
Thank you. Well, what we see is that in the next years, the universities will continue to do more online teaching, or actually what we call, because this comes back to the previous presenter as well about is e-learning, is it about e or is it learning? Nowadays in Europe we've started to talk about digitally enhanced teaching. So what we've kind of perhaps realized even more concretely in the last months, and that there are things you can do very well online, and you should and perhaps you can do them in a more efficient way. And I think there were examples in the both case studies here. And what we will see the universities doing in the long run is reflection on what will stay online and what will come back to the campus. And we do hope that all the universities will do this. You hinted when I finished my presentation that what is EUA as a membership organization of universities going to do. And what we plan to do is to have the universities across Europe together discussing these matters and sharing the lessons learned and what worked and what didn't work, because not everything is perfect. So I can see that this kind of reflection in the next years will continue, at least in our side.
Okay, thank you very much, Tia. So the peer learning is an important aspect of dealing with the future to come. Suning, would you like to add something from an Indonesian perspective?
From Indonesia perspective, is the opportunity we prepare to process to digital transformation, the real digital transformation, and it's time to make it smoothly and prepare everything to get the new condition.
Good. Tia, you raised your hand. Yes, please, go ahead.
If I may say, another thing we've learned in Europe is that we have very different legislations or frameworks for universities in different countries. In some countries, the digital transformation that happened, or the leap that happened, it hasn't posed any problems, let's say, in your institutional or your program accreditation in most cases, or otherwise. But in some systems, we see that the regulation is quite restrictive. And I think another thing that many of the European policymakers or governments will need to reflect on is how much innovation or this kind of rapid, flexible responses are available. Just giving you an example that, for instance, in some there is in Croatia, there is a certain percentage that you can offer online in your program without, getting into trouble, and the universities have to balance with that. But in the next stages, there needs to be a reflection. These kind of rules make sense.
Okay, thank you very much. The regulatory framework within the countries and between the countries is an important aspect to mention. Maybe let's dive into some of the questions related to the shift to online learning from our audience. Now, you mentioned it already in your presentation, Aloys, the difference between freshmen, onboarding, and regular students. I think that's already one differentiation. I think, Suning, you also referred to the question of the freshmen. Some of the participants wonder whether online is really better than physical. My personal opinion would be that it's not either or, but it's, as Tia said, the digitally enhanced learning for some aspects could be a good solution. But then other participants also wondered, how does this apply to very technical classes or subjects? So I'm happy that we have a mathematician and an engineering representative here. So if you go to your specific discipline, how would you answer this type of maybe skepticism or question? Can you really teach engineering practical examples through digital learning? Can you really cover all types of knowledge acquisition, or are there certain limitations? And if yes, what are these limitations, and how would you cope with them in the near future when we don't have this crisis mode maybe on every day anymore? So, Aloys.
So first of all, I think that the theoretical parts, say, of electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, they can be taught just as mathematics, digitally, without any kind of problems. The problem is that the students have to cover the material, that they go to the lectures, not to the lecture hall, but they have to watch it, and they have to work every day. We do not have a solution for lab work. I think this is essential, that the persons come to the university, that they are really working in the lab hands-on. There are certain things which can be done digitally. For instance, I mentioned the mining course, that you are virtually walking in a mine. This gives you an impression, but I think it's not a real substitute for really being in a mine. So this only gives you an impression, but not the real feeling of it. And for me, digitalization is one method to personalize teaching in the future. We have students with many kinds of interests. For instance, we have students with children. They have to take care of children, or they have to the care of, say, their parents, and they need to learn at different times as the usual standard students does. So we have a diversification of all kinds of students, and digitalization helps us in this aspect, but not for the lab work.
Okay, so clear restrictions still at lab work and certain types of learning. Suning, how would you see the challenges of?
Yes, online learning is not really moving traditional classroom into online environment. We need to design learning path, activities, and student engagement, etc. This is important to designing online classroom with online paradigm. Yeah, because we all just to moving traditional paradigm to online paradigm.
Let me stay with you for a moment, because there are a few questions addressed to you particularly. I think one of the interesting questions for all of us would be, how does UGM cater for maybe students that are located in regions with low bandwidth, with bad internet connectivity, with power outages? Is there a strategy on how to be inclusive also towards those that maybe have a little bit of a disadvantage?
Yes. We have harmonizing policy of harmonizing synchronous and asynchronous learning. Yes, and learning management system provide the material record by teacher, and then we can use it if a student get a problem the bandwidth. It's a harmonization, synchronous and asynchronous learning.
Thank you very much. A question to all three of you, starting with Tia on what do we know about, well, we have two examples from institutions, but maybe Tia, what do we know about the universities in Europe being preparing their teachers for online learning, preparing the students for online learning? Do you have any examples of how universities deal with this type of challenge, that the lecturers are qualified, that the students maybe can do preparatory?
Well, what we've seen in the past months, indeed, is that the universities have stepped up the different kind of learning and teaching centers and the pedagogical training for teachers. We've had case examples where in the summer break, for instance, was used to offer teaching to staff, so to be better prepared for the next autumn. This is clearly an activity that has picked up. It has existed in most institutions. There have been some delivery, but this is very much, I would say, in most universities, it's a learning by doing and developing things as they've gone along.
So Aloys, you already mentioned a little bit about this topic. Maybe if you could also cover the question on how you prepare students more in particular, especially under these challenging situations that maybe because of COVID, they are under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. Are there any measures in terms of preparing students in this?
So we asked all our students at the end of the summer semester. So what did you like, and the things you didn't like? And we will take these results into account for the planning of the winter semester. So that means not only just put videos into the web. That's not enough. You have to talk to the students. There has to be an interaction with the students. This is necessary at least also for in face-to-face learning and also in online learning. And this helps the students that they learn to ask questions on their own. This is in particular true for the freshmen. When they come from school, everybody is more or less prepared for them. In the German university system, they have to act on their own. If they want to get help, they have to ask for it. And so we do not have a very strong way of accompanying the students during their courses. So we do not really see this only at the end of the semester. And our onboarding process will help us to improve these things for the next summer semester. But since I'm not so sure whether the next summer semester will be face-to-face learning again, or more or less comparable to the situation we have got now.
Thank you very much. And maybe going to Indonesia, to you, Bu Suning, also the question on how do you prepare your lecturers and maybe also reach those that until March, April were rather technologically illiterate, so did not really work with digital tools that much. How did you reach them and how do you prepare these?
EGM also make a survey both for students and for the staff to know the real condition during this pandemic. And then we have innovative learning module. Innovative learning module is will train to lecture every month to more get the knowledge to engage the students. And we will plan to migrate our learning management system to 3.7 model base and to 3.9 model base because it seems not stable for now, and then we migrate the storage to the higher space for the online activities.
Yes, I just wanted to still kind of repeat or go back to what the case studies brought up, and what we see is from across the Europe, the importance of the induction to the university life. The both cases talked about it, and for instance about the concern of the new students coming in and providing them the proper induction on online learning, or then how to study in a university, because it is usually different from school. And I think that is the key issue, and that's been the concern this autumn for those universities that already started their semester. What we saw is that they typically prioritize having the first year students on campus, so to be able to do this before sending them home.
Okay, thank you. So, Aloys, I would like to go to a question that is directed directly to you, coming from Indonesia. Could you please elaborate a bit more on what do you mean by teaching?
In the past Corona time, we will have the usual lectures to a certain extent as we had before. And there will be additional material. For instance, the lectures are recorded. There will be serious games. There will be, for instance, mathematics homework problems every week, which are graded by student assistants, for instance. And this will be a combination that the digital material like videos, series, games, and so on are provided, as well as the face-to-face lectures. And so that every student can pick the way how he or she learns best. And I think this is, the students are different. So they are very heterogeneous, and everybody should pick the way to learn things he prefers. So it could be, it's not necessary to go to a lecture if you don't want to. This could be one possibility. Of course, this does not work for lab work, say, in chemistry or physics. But for all these kinds, you have a variety which is offered to the students.
So the vision you are working on is a more tailor-made higher education experience, depending on the student needs and interests. I mean, if I look back on when I was at university about 20 years ago, general introduction lectures were not necessarily the type of events you would go to voluntarily. So it's maybe it's a little bit tradition in higher education, depending on the subject and the mode of delivery, whether or not you need to do it in presence by going there, or whether it's even better to have it as an online lecture, as a video, so you could watch it at your own pace. So I think it's interesting to see this develop further. We have some questions in the chat about student engagement and comparing student engagement in digital tools and in physical presence. Now, I think it's a difficult question to answer, but maybe you might tell me I'm wrong, but it's difficult to compare if you haven't started analyzing one thing and then finding a methodology to compare the current situation to what you had before. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe in Aachen you already have found a way about figuring out whether you can actually, when you use Zoom, you are better at.
So what we saw in the beginning is that the students watched the videos very regularly, since we could see this, how the web was used at our IT center. But after, say, 6 weeks, the number was going down. So, and then it was going on again before the exams started. The exams in Aachen are spread all over the vacation time from July to the mid of October. Then they use the material again. So I think it should be our interest that we pose problems that the students need to do things during the whole semester, so that they can learn on a regular basis and not just a few days before the exam is given. And we will measure this, and this will be a future project. For instance, we have got one project via data mining in the computer science, in which courses are taken first by the students. There's not a regular way to do this. You can switch this. How does the way of choosing the modules have an influence on the success of the students? So this is a very interesting point of research, and this can not only be done in computer science, but also in different study courses. We have to learn them, but this is really work in progress.
Thank you. I think this whole development also again demonstrates that it is important to invest in a backbone, a platform that underpins the teaching. We have one question in the chat about whether or not providing the videos of the lecture to the students, because it might decrease the interest of watching the live demonstration if you can rewatch it at your own pace. But maybe you have Suning, you have an opinion about this particular question. I think, as I understood your presentation, your e-log system, a learning management system, is actually designed to have this type of videos ready at the pace of the students so they can rewatch it. So it's not so much a question whether or not to post it, but it's more a normal thing to do at your.
Okay, you hear me? For engaging students, we explore all modules in Aloys, such as wiki, quiz, formative assessment, and we also provide YouTube. Every lecture have channel YouTube to integrate with learning management system Aloys, and then we have studio mini studio if every faculty to lecture record the video for learning activities. And then we prefer to blended learning to the next semester, and then we going to the seamless learning to design the Aloys to provide analytical data to get the insight of the learning experience. I don't. The sound is not for my side because
Thank you very much.
the signal maybe bandwidth and then not clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope we can continue nevertheless. Maybe a question related, I mean, the interaction, maybe to finish this question that was posed, of course, if you have a live recording, the interaction possibilities with the students and the lecturer are different than if you watch the video and it's asynchronous. So I think that's also one of the examples where it's actually, it has both benefits and disadvantages for the learner if they watch a video that was recorded at a later stage or if they participate in the live session. And depending on the size of a group, it also makes sense to attend live seminars much more than just rewatching. We have a number of questions again on the topic, how do we convince students that online learning is at least as good as face-to-face learning? Now, I think under the current situation, it's not really a question. I mean, face-to-face learning is not happening, so we have to deal with the situation as it is. So I would like just to hear a brief comment from your side, because this is just a theoretical exercise to say how do we convince it's better to do this or that. The question now is really, how do we bridge the gap between the situation we have?
Indeed, at this moment, we don't have to convince anyone because it's compulsory, at least in our systems, and we are not giving alternatives. But I think in the long run, we need to pay attention to the online teaching quality. So I think we will convince in the long run the students that this can be as good as face-to-face. And there is no reason why not to think that it could be, and it can be better even, as we learn how to do this online and use the different technologies that were described in the 2 case studies. So I think it is of course something we need to pay attention to. That, but I think a lot of the question is also that perhaps, as the 2 case studies also show, that perhaps the thing is that the universities were doing things. They were experimenting. They were offering online learning already before. What has now happened is it's become kind of public knowledge, and really we are talking about it in a different way than we did before. But I think the way we convince the students is by doing a great job. And but I think I agree with the other speakers in the sense that we do have different students and who have different priorities. We're not going to convince everyone about one methodology being the best way for them, because they learn differently. So I think what we will just, in moving forward, we will just have to admit that people learn differently and they will have different preferences. And perhaps as universities, we are more
Now, coming back to maybe also, Tia, to something you said earlier on, because so far we have only talked about traditional learners. We have some questions in the chat about qualification for the workforce. You mentioned the micro-degrees topic being something that's being discussed in Europe. It's being discussed everywhere. Last week I was moderating a session with speakers from Australia and South Africa. So it is really a global topic, discussing the role of universities in qualifying the workforce for those that are actually already graduates of institutions. So maybe a few more words from that perspective, Tia, and then maybe, I don't know, Aloys, do you have an example?
Indeed, this is a topic that is of high political importance. And actually, you mentioned one of the leading countries, which is Australia. We can see that they've worked a lot more on this. And for instance, when we did the desk research I mentioned in my presentation, it's the Australian material that is very prominent in the field. What we see in Europe is, what we are trying to say at the moment to policymakers is that many of the universities are doing this already in many systems without necessarily having called them micro-credentials. For many, but this also varies a lot from one system to another. In some countries, the universities have had a lifelong learning offer, these kind of small learning experiences offered to students and or graduates, those who are already working for decades, and it is part of the general trend. For instance, in Flanders here in Belgium, the universities tell us that we've been doing this for a long time. Some of our modules have been available for general public to just come and take one module and get a credential for it. Whereas then in other systems, we hear that the universities don't have this possibility. It's very much based on the degree provision, bachelor, master, PhD. I think that the issue for us at the moment is, does everybody need to have a 3-year bachelor right away if they want more education or higher education? Or could we be more flexible in this? And the regulations are very different. But this is a topic that we don't have resolved yet completely. But I would be curious to hear.
We are thinking about offering a micro-bachelor in data literacy next year. So this is also for our students, since the faculties are usually very reluctant to insert, for instance, data literacy, since they have to give up kinds of their traditional curriculum in engineering or mathematics or whatsoever. So that the students can get this knowledge, we offer a micro-bachelor, say about 30 credit points, which is taught more or less online. That means it is also accessible to a person outside academia. And of course, we will offer, say, exams that we can give a certificate to the participants of this course. This is one example. There are more examples, for instance, in economics and or more advanced than data literacy in machine learning or whatsoever. And I heard also from people from practice that they go to a platform such as edX or whatsoever. And if you're in a company, the new employees are told, take a course from this online platform and then apply this to the work in our company. So this is already in practice, and the universities should take care of these developments and give a certain answer. So in my opinion, our students should be prepared for the market, for the working market for the next 40 years. And this means, as Tia already mentioned, it will not be enough that you pass a university course, but you will have to learn over the years more and more, and this will be a change in the academic education over the next years.
Thank you. Suning, I hope the sound goes through. How is the topic of micro degrees seen at UGM? Is it a topic for your institutional policy?
Yes. You hear me? Yes. So
I don't hear you.
COVID-19 has made lecture realize that blended learning is important. Lecture has to have skill to teach online, so we need to develop that kind of skill. I don't have insight about the micro degrees. Maybe it's not yet focused in our university, but it's challenging.
Thank you very much. Maybe I promised already the audience we go to the topic of cheating a little bit in the discussion, because it's one aspect of a shift to online learning, that you provide a secure environment where you can be sure that the learning that is being demonstrated actually was achieved by the learner and not by some interested third party that provided services in that sense to the learner. Aloys, you already mentioned serious games as one example. Are there other technological experimentation things that you are thinking about? I think one of the participants in the chat wrote that they use in the Philippines, or they use a anti-cheating software called Responders, which actually gives some challenges because it doesn't really run on all laptops because of the technical requirements, and that of course some of the institutions use Blackboard Ultra as a
I think we have to talk about the near future. At the moment, we are only taking exams, written exams, for a small number of students, maybe up to 10. This is done usually by Zoom. That means the camera is turned on, and in the best case, we have an additional digicam so that we can see the screen, and we can also see what the student does. And the student has to turn on the microphone, is not allowed to leave the room, and no picture from behind. That means you have to see the room. Then it should work. Of course, also under these conditions, it's possible to cheat, but it's more difficult. It's also possible to cheat when you are in a lecture hall. if you have software, there are certain solutions. The problem in Germany is a legal problem. That means the persons responsible for data protection have to give their okay that we may use this. And this is not done at the moment. The problem for remote exams is not a technical one. It's it's the question of the legal problems, the legal requirements we have to face, which are different in any state of Germany, not only over Europe, but also within a country. There are different solutions. In Bavaria, for instance, they just passed a law that it is possible to use certain, say, spy software on the laptop of the participants, and that they can take care what they are doing. And then, of course, we have some student assistants who watch what the student does on the screen at our university. And if somebody is cheating, of course, we do not count the exam. But it's more, I think it's necessary that we offer these things to students who are not able to come or who have to stay in quarantine because they met somebody who was infected. And we do not want to have these persons at our university, which might be allowed. It's more safe that we take an exam under comparable conditions and that they can go on in their study courses. And that's the reason why we do this. If somebody goes to court, we will see what happens. I don't know.
Thank you, Aloys. Tia, do you know?
Well, EUA hasn't worked on it as such, but what we hear from talking to our member universities is that this is something that the universities are working on and experimenting, and there are several softwares that are being tested. And what we have understood is that in quite many cases, the universities have had national cooperation or regional cooperation in exchanging experiences. For many universities, this is a relatively new topic. But then again, we do have in Europe some quite prominent open universities who have worked online for years. And it is our understanding that in some cases they have, for instance, shared their knowledge with those universities who are not that experimented. And just to give an example, this is something that has made it to the mainstream media also in Europe. For instance, here in Belgium, the National Evening News made stories about the software collapsing in summer when the first online exams took place in some of the local universities. So this is clear.
Yes. To overcome cheating, UGM policies have to shift paradigm for engagement. We have to move from knowledge testing, as they can use software to solve, for example, difficult integral. But when we ask more about case-based, project-based, and then ask the student to do reflective assessment, then we solve the problem of cheating. Proctor system is good, but it's not possible with low bandwidth in Indonesia. So we need to change how the lecturer assess the student, and then strengthening the character development from early stage of university studies, such as integrity, empathy, and justice. And then we see that based on taxonomy Bloom, we concentrate more on higher learning outcome, more analyzing than solving technical problem.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me just address two more questions to you directly, because they come up in the chat. First of all, a question on eLock, comparing it to Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. I think Microsoft Teams we can leave a little bit out of the room, but how would you compare eLock to Google Classroom? What are the advantages of your own institutional learning platform that you use?
Higher standard of
is that something
system.
you're discussing?
Easier to update the higher standard. For example, now we have 3.7 standard, and then we move to 7 to 9 standard and accommodate completely feature of for engagement, like peer assessment, and then we have I will add this. We have the plug-in compatible to Aloys 3.9 is such as Turnitin for similarity check for the assessment, student assessment can compare one task and another task for of student. We upgrade to the higher standard.
Okay, and am I? Okay, thank you. And my second question would be on the last part of your presentation, you related to your vision and to bring in the charity of learning. And I think some of our audience wonder, can they...
We have regularly event to share with community about the issues in digital transformation, like cybersecurity, and then programming, Python programming, and so on. And we regularly make the event for the community. Yes, and then
okay, so you're doing outreach activities also for other institutions. Thank you very much. We have reached... yes, go ahead.
No, I don't hear. Yes.
Suning, you wanted to say something? There's a slight delay, so I have to wait a little bit. Okay, then we have to continue. We have reached the end of our session nearly. I would like to ask all three speakers to maybe say one piece of advice, what they have learned from the current situation and how to bring online learning forward for the future. What would you think is the most pressing issue that everyone needs to think about? Maybe I start first so that you have time to think about. I think the question when we discuss online learning is we always see as an organization the advantages of bringing in more diverse students into internationalization, but at the same time we know that it's difficult for some students to engage in digital learning. So I think one of the challenges for the future also in Europe would be, because one of the people in the chat wrote, it's not so much the case in Europe. I don't think so. I mean, we have disadvantaged students that have low bandwidth access at home as well. And I think we have to be very conscious about how to design online learning modules so that we reach the broadest amount of students possible. So have different variations or layers of technology, or have various possibilities of having both a lecture online, but maybe also just the transcript of the lecture, so that we design courses that are ready for a equitable.
It's a huge question, actually, but maybe one aspect that I haven't brought up is that what we've learned from last spring, and what the institutional people tell us, is the amazing motivation and willingness of the staff and students to get things done. That there is willingness to be flexible. Everybody is working their best to get things done, and they are learning a lot. But what we are now a bit concerned is whether the staff and students can keep this continuing. That, you know, after the first crisis, can you hold on to the momentum? And I think when we are doing the digital leap and asking people to learn new things and new ways of teaching or new ways of learning, we need to engage with them and ask their views. I think this came up in Aloys' intervention. I think one thing we need to have is open communication, so that everybody feels that they are engaging and contributing to the transformation we hope to maintain also in the next stages. So it's not always about top down and saying that we have a strategy, this is what we're going to do. We need to find.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm really surprised about the engagement of all the colleagues. This is not comparable to the situation in schools in Germany. So, even people who were not fond of digitalization now did it, and most of them say, oh, it's not as difficult as I thought. So there's a big chance. The big chance for the students are the diverse students and the internationalization. That means we can offer courses at our university which are taught at other universities. On the other hand, if somebody wants to go abroad, the situation is that he can, for instance, take courses or exams at our university as well. And this is a chance for internationalization over the next years, I think.
Thank you very much. So the aspect of international collaboration will be a topic for the third seminar that we have.
The future being adaptive and but balancing technology and human being aspect is the prominent, aided by care, cooperation, collaboration characters to be part of charity of learning. And then lifelong learning established among the academic environment and encourage them to freely share the knowledge with integrity and responsibility is also the main things to consider about.
Thank you very much. I think that sums it up quite nicely, being flexible, creative, equitable, internationally connected, bottom up, bringing in everyone, leaving no one behind. It's a very ambitious agenda. It's learning by doing. We've been doing this for the past months now, and we will have to continue those. So let's seize the opportunity and make higher education and teaching and learning in this crisis better for the future, so that after COVID we are much better prepared to deal with our diverse students and learners and prepare them also for lifelong learning and a labor market that will be completely different probably. So thank you to Tia in Brussels, Aloys in Germany with me in Aachen, and to Suning in Indonesia. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for contributions. Thank you for the audience for all your questions. I did not have to do much as a moderator. I just had to find interesting questions in my chat box. It worked really well.